Yes, yes, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne, and all that jazz. Here we are with a slice of Khorne's roster. Now, we've already seen quite a bit of Khorne stuff before. In the survival battle that Creative Assembly gave me the opportunity to fight, I was able to battle it out with some juiced down versions of these units, but I still wanted to do this video showcasing this sort of selection of Khorne's roster. It's not Khorne's full roster. Also keep in mind that these stats are not final. Things are still in development and may change, but given that we now have, you know, full units with their full HP and fighting power, I wanted to go through, do some unit comparisons to some units we're familiar with to try and get a handle on what these units' intended roles are, or where Creative Assembly feels they should be at. So without further ado, lest Khorne lop my head off, let's get to the Exalted Bloodletters. So unfortunately, we don't get to see the basic Bloodletters in this one, but again, you can go back and look at my survival battle replays if you want to get their stats. The Exalted Bloodletters are going to be a higher tier of Great Weapon Infantries, on par with something like the Bestigor Herd. Their attack and defense stats are actually better. They might be more expensive than Bestigor Herd, something more along the lines of like a Swordmaster Executioner, but similarly, very high charge bonus, and weapon strength, great armor piercing damage. They are technically anti-infantry as they have great swords. Flaming magic damage. I mean, outside of the low armor, this is an incredibly impressive unit in terms of stats. They get both physical resistance and spell resistance. Quick reminder that magic resistance is being changed into spell resistance, which the difference being units with magic attacks on their melee attacks or on their standard missile attacks no longer be subject to magic resistance. Instead, now it's only activatable spells and effects. As they are demons, they do suffer from demonic instability, and they also have this Khorne demon ability here, Hellblade, which gives them additional armor piercing and weapon damage when they get more than 80 kills as a unit, which is quite a bit. But what this means is, like, high model count chaff factions like Vampire Counts, Skaven, potentially even Greenskins may struggle against Khorne if they're just feeding them power. So they do look very cool as well, and just super impressive melee stats, as it should be for Khorne. Moving on to the Halberds. Chaos Warriors of Khorne with Halberds, of course, are just Chaos Warriors with Halberds, but more angrier. They have less defense, actually less attack baseline, but they will get more with Frenzy. They also gain Charge Reflect. As a reminder, all Halberds in Total War Warhammer 3 are getting Charge Reflect, as you may have seen from my Cathayan roster video. Very interesting, will help the Halberd units sort of find more of a niche. Currently, in Warhammer 2, you pretty much just take great weapons, in multiplayer at least. Like, there are only rare circumstances where you would actually want the Halberds over great weapons. Of course, Khorne, I don't know if he has warriors with great weapons. He does have, though, something fairly unique: warriors with dual hand weapons. Essentially, it's like a Warrior of Chaos that they gave the weapon strength of a Marauder Berserker. Great charge as well. Of course, picking up Frenzy, as all Khorne warrior type units do. 100 armor, very impressive. Still only 28 speed. I do wish that was a tiny bit faster. Like, even 30 speed I think would be appropriate, but still will be a great heavy DPS unit. I don't know. We don't have too many dual wield, like, heavy armor DPS type units. Most of them are quite light, so they will be pretty unique in that way. Very, very cool unit. I think one of the reasons why people were maybe expecting more for the Tzeentch warrior units is because, just look at these guys, man. They look very impressive, awesome, unique unit models and everything. Very appropriate looking for Khorne. So Creative Assembly kind of set the standard high with these guys and then failed to live up to it with the Tzeentchian warriors, which I think is the reason why a lot of people were upset, because these guys do look legitimately awesome, must be said. Now, for more angry Warriors of Chaos units, we've got the angriest spawn to ever be seen. They actually have Enrage, they're so angry, and 30 additional weapon strength over the regular Warriors of Chaos type spawn. More attack, less defense, in the trend that we'll see continue with the Khorne units. Warriors of Chaos spawn are already great DPS against light armor infantry, but almost 200 weapon strength is absolutely insane. These guys are going to be a brick house falling on your light armor units. It will be very strong. They also have additional charge bonus over the regular spawn, so just all around much more killy. Likewise, the Minotaurs of Khorne you might think would be more killy than regular Minotaurs with great weapons, and they do have a slightly higher attack versus slightly lower defense. The most impressive thing though is they pick up an additional 35 armor, putting them up to 70. The lack of armor is one of Minotaur's biggest downsides, so these guys having more armor, it does give them a great benefit. A little bit less charge, a little bit more charge, which is also par for the course for Khorne. They do not have the Woodsman trait though, so it does look like they'll suffer forest penalties. I can't imagine they're very used to running around the woods in Khorne's realm. I don't know if there's many trees there. I guess we'll see, but very impressive regardless, and will be a fun addition to Khorne's roster. Hopefully they'll make it into the Beastman roster at some point as well. Maybe it's just as a one-off like Regiment of Renown or something, but still, I would like to see these guys alongside Taurox the Brass Bull. I think that would be very, very appropriate. Blood Greed is also slightly different. Now, just in the way that it's reflected on the tooltip, you can see it kind of charges up over time. Starts at 0%, but will work up to 20% armor piercing damage, 15% charge, and 16 melee attack, which will be an additional nice buffs for Minotaurs. Their charge bonus is going to be absolutely insane. They will be a very, very scary unit to try and fight in melee. Pretty much that can be said of all these Khorne units, to be honest. Moving on to the Flesh Hounds, the good boys of Khorne. I expected these guys to be a little bit more like Norscan Ice Wolves, but it turns out they actually have less models and are more like the Feral Cold ones in terms of model count. Significantly less armor. They don't do AP damage, but much higher charge as well. Higher attack and defense. Not much higher defense, but much higher melee attack than the Feral Cold ones, and they're also 90 speed. So some comparisons to be made, but not exactly perfect comparison. Still will be a great fast attack unit going after light cavalry, skirmishers. They will devour with that massive 65 weapon strength, 46 charge. Look out Reavers, look out Raiders, look out all of the above. Flesh Hounds are coming for your lunch. They are some big boys, and I like this guy right here. What a good boy. Love that unit model, I have to say. I also love these unit models. Gore Beasts are just Gore Beast chariots, but again, more angrier. They have Frenzy. Other than that, basically the same. I mean, they get a little bit less melee defense for that Frenzy, but considering that it's a charge-oriented unit, right? It's a chariot. One of the primary components of Frenzy's charge bonus, right? This will be an excellent, excellent chariot unit. Probably one of the best single chariot units in the entire game. Definitely look forward to using these guys. Again, the Khorne warriors mounted on the back look absolutely awesome. Really, really cool. Even if it is a recycled unit, it's a very cool recycled unit, it must be said. I was hoping that we would get the Gore Beasts, as an individual unit of monstrous infantry, but hey, there's always DLC, right? Next up, the Blood Crushers of Khorne, and very interesting, heavy cavalry unit. You could maybe call them a shock cavalry. They only have 55 charge. It seems like they're maybe more for sustained combat, especially given that they have the demons physical resistance, which will make them actually surprisingly tanky, even though they only have 34 melee defense. 100 armor and 20% physical resistance is very legit. Anti-infantry with 60 weapon damage is absolutely massive. Like I've said probably 100 times, and will say 100 times in this video. Ridiculously strong and scary. Again, the Hellblade also plays into them, sort of being more of a sustained combat unit. I've got the unit cards up here for demis for Blood Crushers, but they definitely look like they'll be probably more expensive. Their attack and defense stats are somewhat comparable. They do have more weapon strength, and the additional physical resistance and abilities I would think would push their cost north of 1500, but I could be wrong. The Skull Crushers, on the other hand, are very similar, but even better, I would say. They pick up better sustained combat stats, and especially 6 melee defense and 30 armor will help make up for the spell and physical resistance of their demon counterparts. Additional charge bonus, and also get Frenzy, so they're kind of just stronger right out of the box instead of having to charge up with Hellblades like the Blood Crushers. Got the Great Stag Knights up here as well, because they're another monstrous cavalry unit that picks up Frenzy and relies on their massive charge bonus. Almost the same weapon strength and charge, actually. But the Skull Crushers do have much more impressive sustained combat stats. Attack, defense, armor, all much better. Obviously, way slower, but still, I'd imagine these guys are going to be 1700 points plus, just because their stats are so impressive. I don't know, though. I mean, I guess that's the thing about Khorne, is he's the best in melee, so The Skull Cannon, oh boy, another one of my favorite units. I think secretly Khorne might be my number 2 demon faction. I do love a lot of his units here. The Skull Cannon is another chariot artillery. We're getting quite a few of these in Warhammer 3. Right now, the only one currently in game is sort of the Steam Tank, right? If we compare these two, the Steam Tank obviously much more impressive in terms of armor. It's unbreakable. It is way slower though, and has close to the same melee stats, has more attack but less defense. Similar weapon strength as well. Steam Tank does have much higher charge, but the Skull Cannon, the missile attack is actually better for the Skull Cannon, not to mention it has physical and spell resistance. And in terms of abilities here, you might think only 12 ammunition is not very much, and you are correct, but this thing can also fire while moving, which the Steam Tank, I mean, the turret can, the main gun cannot. But it has these two abilities here, which, while it's in melee, it actually gets extra ammunition and can regenerate hit points. So it is definitely something you'll want to be firing a few volleys, charging in, pulling back, firing a few volleys, or alternately, if your opponent tries to shut it down with, like, say, some light cavalry or a sort of lower tier flying unit, they may not even be able to take down the Skull Cannon, given its stats and regeneration and everything. You might just be, healing it and giving it some more ammunition. So a very, very interesting unit, one I'm really looking forward to using. Will give Khorne some kind of answer for long range. The Blood Shrine is somewhat similar. It's another kind of single entity chariot, no shooting attack. I've chosen to compare it to the Black Coach just because there aren't honestly a lot of single entity chariot units that are actually functional as chariots. Blood Shrine's kind of interesting in that it is certainly a functional single entity chariot. 200 weapon strength is pretty nice. 45 charge, not amazing, but it's good. Decent attack and defense, better than the Black Coach actually. Good armor as well, right? Good speed. So Black Coach, kind of with its abilities, does get quite a bit stronger than what it is on its base unit card, but Blood Shrine instead picks up some support abilities as well. It's got this, the Gore Feast, what we've seen on the Skull Cannon, so it can regenerate hit points in combat, which is awesome. Totem of Endless Bloodletting is the main kind of support ability here. It's not huge. +5 melee attack, +4 leadership is not the biggest thing, but it is certainly helpful, and nice to have that extra melee attack certainly help your units get the hits that they're probably already getting anyway. But there you go. And of course, physical and spell resistance, as it is a Khorne demon. Also a Khorne demon is this Soul Grinder. I'd imagine all the different Chaos Gods are going to be getting their own Soul Grinders. The Khorne version has flaming magic damage, 500 weapon strength in melee, 800 missile strength shooting, 120 range. Reminds me somewhat of like an Ancient Salamander, but actually much better. Has like almost double the HP, much better sustained fighting stats, way better weapon strength. The shooting attack is better, so like the Ancient Salamander is quite cheap, right? It's like only 1050 now, I think. Soul Grinder I could see being 1400 plus, but a similar sort of fast attack, shooting, fighting hybrid monster. Very interesting, and we'll see. Could end up being ridiculously strong. A lot of the hybrid shooting, fighting monsters currently are not great, like the Medusa and the Ancient Salamander, primarily because they're so squishy. Soul Grinder does look to be quite a bit tankier, so there's that advantage it has, and should be a much better unit than the others I just listed. Moving on here, we've got the Blood Reaper on Blood Shrine. So this is the Khorne hero on the Blood Shrine. Comparing it to the other stats, it's got slightly more weapon strength. It's a character chariot, right? So I'll compare it here to the Wargore, which is not exactly a one-to-one comparison. Again, it's a little bit of a support chariot rather than being just a pure damage chariot, but still okay weapon strength. And charge, you get the healing. You also get the Hellblade because it's mounted by a demon character for additional weapon strength, so it can get even stronger. Gore Feast is able to give the character regeneration, which is also really nice, and the Totem of Endless Bloodletting of what we saw before. So I do think, in terms of mount options for characters, the fact that it's a regenerating in melee character chariot, I think you'll see quite a bit of the Blood Reaper on this mount. Probably more than other mounts, if I had to guess, but it remains to be seen. Finally, finishing out with the big boys, the Bloodthirster is essentially a flying Shaggoth, even better attack and weapon strength stats than the Shaggoth, also better charge, so probably north of 2,000 points for this guy, but one of the most impressive melee monsters in the game, instantly. It's like a Shaggoth with physical resistance, right? Just absolutely insane. The spell resistance, too, will help against, like, certain types of magic missiles, like Vindictive Glare, and overall, just ridiculous. I don't know how many times times I've said that in this video, but somebody count it up for me and just see, like, yes, Khorne kills in melee. What's new? The Exalted Bloodthirster are going to continue that trend. Once again, we'll compare him to Imrik. Flaming damage, they both get. 580 weapon strength, they both get, but Exalted Bloodthirster with more charge, less melee defense and attack, which does make sense. You know, Imrik is an elf, after all, and one of the most skilled fighter elves to have ever lived at that. Exalted Bloodletter does get 90 armor, though. In terms of his abilities, he's got a couple of augments here, one for charge bonus speed and charge speed, the Bloodthirst, and another for weapon damage, both base and armor piercing. 50% base and armor piercing weapon damage in the form of Deathbringer. Bellow of Fury is a breath attack, so like a dragon, he does come loaded with some kind of range component from the air. 3 breath attacks. I'd love to see this breath attack in action, and I'm sure we will very soon. Burning Rage is a little explosion, 3 times uses to help him bail out of danger if he needs to, if he gets surrounded by infantry. I'd imagine he probably has the mass to just chat out anyway, but it's always nice to be able to explode them. Maybe charge into an infantry blob, pop that, and get some great value. He also comes with this passive ability here. If any spellcasters are within a 60-meter radius, they will take a fiery magical damage explosion, sort of like what the Anvils of Doom currently have, where if you're close by, you'll take an automatic miscast. Instead, here, you'll just blow up, and you could still take miscast damage on top of that. So a really nice ability to help Khorne counter his hated magic. And that's it for the Bloody Boys units in this particular video. We got to see some stuff that we didn't get to see previously. Khorne also comes with these army abilities, which I must have missed this when they talked about Khorne's roster reveal and mechanics before, but in battle you get these 3 abilities here. The resource charges up, and after you use one of these abilities it will spend. So if you want to get to the 3rd tier, you do have to save up your, I don't know, what is it, skulls or something in battle? I'm not really sure. Blood, whatever it is, whatever the resource, you'll get these abilities here. First is an area augment of 24 melee attack, fairly basic but also fairly strong. Another one gives area of effect unbreakable. Entities cannot die while the ability is active as well, so that will be a super strong ability to try and hold a pocket that's collapsing if you do have it available, which, given Khorne isn't the tankiest faction in the world, I'd imagine that will be quite useful. Finally, you get this Blade of Khorne, a free explosion. Given that you don't have any magic of any kind, it will be nice to get some kind of activatable AoE damage. Same with like the Exalted Bloodletter's explosion, just having some kind of AoE clearing potential is very important. That's it for today for Khorne's roster. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. Hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.